Ta-da. All right, I believe we are live. Um, all right, here we go. This is hello to everyone. This is Friday night, Forum 11. It's always a little crazy here when we start and jump in. I'm just checking on and um, yeah, so this is where we would usually have Sabby's time slot, but Sabby's on vacation doing some birthday stuff, and believe it or not, she didn't want to live stream on her birthday, so we're keeping the spot warm here, and so I'm here with my main man co-host Cory. How's it going, Cory?
Good. How about you?
All right, we are good, and we have special guests. We have Mr. Oz the Boomer from Beauty and the Beast. And how are you this fine Friday, Ozman?
Oh, I'm doing great. It's Beauty and the Boomer. I don't want to be confused with the Beast.
Did I say Beauty and the Beast? I think I
You,
did.
you sure did. Yeah.
We're off to a rough start now. So do catch Beauty and the Boomer on you're on Saturday nights out there on the West Coast,
Saturday
right?
night, 7 p.m. Pacific. Yeah, the Oasis of Insanity. That's what it's. That's where we're at on Saturday nights. Be there.
All right, cool. Yeah, that's a good hangout there. And then now we also have the newest YouTube star, Mr. Mastermind Hour.
How we
How's it going,
doing?
Mastermind?
Great, great. Happy to be here.
All right, yeah, and you've been hanging out on the RBN Long Beach channel with Charlie Brown, and
Stay balanced. Yeah, on Beyond the Art Politics.
all right, cool. Yeah, I've been catching that. You guys been doing good stuff out there.
Yeah, I think somebody's going to be showing up Sunday, possibly, if I heard right.
Oh yeah, yes. They were very much kind enough to invite Cory and I to go on their show on Sunday. What's your start time?
Let's see, an hour from now, wherever you're at. So
So yeah, they go at 9 p.m. Eastern.
25 hours from now.
Yeah, 9 p.m. Eastern and whatever that is in your time zone. Um, and yeah, so you can see more Cory and I up there, and of course. So what are we talking about? So the kind of the title of this show that I put in there was MCDS, which is a concept that Cory and I have been working on and trying to get out there. Stands for Money, Corruption, Demands, and Solutions. But I think an interesting place to start would be that it's hard to have words for the State of the Union, right? This you know what it made me think of is that if you know when you find a big rock and you pick it up and like all these bugs and worms and whatnot come crawling out from under the rock, that's what it looked like to me, the State of the Union. But I know.
Come on, Eric. Don't insult bugs and worms like that. They're people too. Yeah.
Oh man, I know you. I know you and Shonda and your other friend was that.
Amber and Linda.
No, when you did the reaction stream last night.
Oh yeah, that was Linda. Yeah,
Yeah,
Linda,
with
our executive
Linda.
producer, Linda. Yeah.
And I don't know. Did you watch it, Mastermind?
Oh, yeah, I did. I was actually trying to I was trying to take a hit every time he fumbled a word, and I couldn't smoke fast enough. And by the end, I got way too high.
The
Oh,
thing
man.
is, I really believe they had him on some kind of drug cocktail to get him
Yeah.
through
could
that.
see,
Too.
yeah, you could see him stepping down. By the end,
for sure.
he came out as a cocaine cowboy at the beginning. He was all fired up, he was amping for that Ukraine money.
Maybe they have an adrenaline pump there under the clothing to give them the hit once in a while. But yeah, oh man, and all the glad handing, and I mean, I guess the place I would kind of start, because I know Oz, you and a lot of people have concern over this idea of actually trying to of how to get anything done politically, and I want I hear you. I mean, and what I'd say is that where Cory and I, and kind of I think a lot of people are coming from, or at least what I would say for us, is that we consider every member of Congress basically at this point our enemy. I mean, it's just they don't represent us. They represent that, top 0.1%. They represent the military industrial complex. And so in any strategy to get something done will really, it needs to be, it's not going to be like an ask them nicely strategy. It's not going to be a letter of writing strategy. It's not going to be, oh, maybe we can co-op some of them. The fraud squad are just, they're performative in what they're doing. And any strategy really has to be more adversarial, and it needs to be more along the lines of demands in terms of getting literally millions of people out into the street and having a clear set of demands. I mean, to me, that is the only way we're going to get anywhere. But I don't know if you guys have any reaction to.
I absolutely agree with you. The problem is they're slow boiling the frog, and every I don't even want to say every American, every human is inherently got that little lazy. It's that risk reward. Is it worth it? I'm a little uncomfortable, but is it worth going out in the streets or maybe get my name on a list or, shit worse? So, I can take that 1% tax increase every year for the rest of my life, or 5%, or is it 15%? They're just boiling the frog. And there's an egghead somewhere that sat down and made a calculation about just how much crap the average American person would take. And then it's like, okay, let's crank it up to that number. And once they got there, they said, let's turn it up just a little. That was probably in 1980. And they've been cranking it up just a little bit every year ever since.
Yeah, I agree. And it's also like it's this cost benefit thing that people think about. It's like how the credit card companies, they want us to just make our minimum payments. They want you to keep your job. They want you to have just the bare minimum. And so that's kind of where we're at now. And it's kind of one of those, I wonder if it's got to get a little bit worse for people to really get out in the streets. But, you also don't want it to go too far down. But yeah, it's a lot of people are still at just that, like just barely comfortable level. And I feel like that's kind of the thing that the capitalists want to keep within that zone.
Yeah, give them just enough money to pay for their Netflix subscription.
Right.
Any thoughts, Oz? You usually have some good opinions for us.
Well, you're right. How do we get these politicians to listen to us? And, Cory, I just want to say your generation is the one that's going to have the biggest awakening, I believe. Because right now, with this current administration touting 14.8 million jobs and the economy's booming and all this bullshit, we can swear here, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
We're not monetized.
Okay. It's insane. And what they're not talking about is all the businesses that are closing, all the people that are becoming unemployed, laid off. I just read where colleges are being shut down across the country. Thousands and thousands and thousands of people are becoming unemployed, and by Monday, that number I expect is going to go up 20%. And they're just trying to hold this damage control is what they're doing before the election cycle gets in full swing. It's not going to work. It's reminiscent of George Bush when he lost. Going into, or not George Bush, when, what was it, Obama's administration, when everything went to hell. No, it was Bush. It was Bush that last time when Obama won, because they couldn't keep a lid on everything back in 2008 up until the election to, help the Republican candidate at that time, which was, McCain and Alaska girl, whatever I can't remember her.
Sarah Palin.
Don't remember Sarah Palin.
Yeah. It's right there right now.
And from my porch,
I actually believe that it's really going to hit the fan here this spring when people go on summer break because they're going to be without a job. So again, how do you get the root of your first question was how do you get this across to Congress? I think you're exactly right. We've got to be militant publicly, socially militant, not violently militant. I don't think it's come to that point. I hope it never does. But you saw AOC last week. She got confronted outside of that movie theater, and absolutely, she was insinuating that she did say that she called it a genocide. That hasn't been up. She's never called it a genocide, has she? She's called for a ceasefire with a little light breath at some point, but she was told to turn it around, and she turned it around. She went outside, and she said, "You guys are going to clip this up to take it fully out of context." That's what her handlers tell her to do every time she gets in a situation like that. But anyway,
The arrogance.
yeah, the arrogance of that. So you're not going to get through to these people because they follow their masters in the Democratic Party, just like the Republicans do, so to speak. But I really do think the Republican base fights back harder. The Democrats are just sheep. I know that was long-winded and there's a lot of information in there, but I can explode. So I'm going to let you guys talk
I
for a
feel you,
while.
Oz. Yeah, I feel you. And I'm actually showing my amateur in this because I haven't done this like Savvy does, and saying hi to like people in the chat. And we have some folks around here. I want to say hi to we'll call this the guy formerly known as Gamer and Ganja Forever, now Retro
No,
Gamer.
it was Gamer and Ganja for life, and then it was Gamer for
That's
life,
what it
and now
was.
it's Retro Gamer.
And Ganja.
No, Gamer,
Hey,
you
Gamer.
are one of the most faithful Savvy viewers. I always see you in the chat, so
We
shout out to
appreciate
you,
you.
bud. Yeah.
And we'll say hi to Jack Hemmings. Jack
Jacqueline.
Hemmings saying hi to us. Hi to us. Good to see you. Zalipa and Steve Wolfman, another regular.
Steve.
Wolfie.
Hey, Steve.
And Miguel, another one of the regulars.
Miguel.
Hey, Miguel.
Miguel, you're everywhere, Miguel. I see you all over the place.
Yeah,
It's a
he
good
tells
day
them
when I
all
can
on
beat
our-
Miguel into one, but yeah, he's always in there first with the peace sign.
Cool. All right. Now, yeah, so getting into all the first thing I would say in reaction to what you were saying, Oz, is that I think one mistake is to view Democrats and Republicans. I'm not saying you're making this mistake, but I'm saying in general, one mistake that people make is to view Democrats and Republicans as any difference. Right? They're both.
Yeah, they're both. They're duopoly.
Corporate.
Yeah, they're corporate donors. Yeah.
I call them corrupt corporate warmongers. Both
The
the
re-
same. And I think when you frame the conversation that way, when you keep that in mind and always come back to that, it does kind of simplify things. It does get us away from this whole, what about Trump? This whole nonsense that if Biden loses, Trump will get in and whatnot. And of course, so many of us are past that, and this whole idea that 4 more years of Trump will be the end of the world. I mean, it would suck, but I mean, this 4 years of Biden has sucked, and we really need to figure out how to get to something truly different. And that's the huge challenge, is to stop worrying about and arguing in the ways that they want us to, right? And start arguing in the ways that they don't want us to. There's that thing of the Overton window, right? Where there's this slice of things that they want us arguing over, whether it's Trump bad, Biden bad, or what do they like us to argue about? Sports, culture war stuff.
Transgenderism.
Trans, and so what do they not want us to argue about, right? Or bring up? Well, things like maybe a wealth tax, maybe like breaking up the huge corporations. Basically anything on the 11 demands list, which you'll have to at least take a peek at, are basically the things that they don't want us to argue about and to get into. And one of the concepts that Cory and I have with the idea of an 11 demands collective is it's really more of a thought collective. And one of the real challenges is to have people breaking out of that Overton box and bringing up the real things.
Yeah, I mean it's mainly about like a follow-up. Like we've talked about the pivot in the past, and so kind of like the hope with MCDS is just like, there's a lot of good stuff out there, and within the community, we follow things and see things for what they are. And so I guess it's just about how we can collectively kind of turn that into action. Circling back to something you said, Oz, about people going into the spring and summer unemployed. I think there's something to that. Within the past 3 years, the company that I work for has had 2 layoffs. So I have, friends and acquaintances that are currently unemployed and looking for work. It's brutal out there, and so yeah, I think there is a lot of that going in, and especially with the election year. I wonder what the implications are of that, because you just kind of have this overall kind of de-patterning and people kind of seeing past the uniparties. I don't know, that might be significant.
Yeah, I mean the other thing is we've had people in the streets. I mean over Gaza, it's been. I mean I think people, especially people on the left, take it kind of for granted how what's been happening with Gaza. I mean we've had across the country in the world millions of people in the street, and they have a simple demand, right? Stop killing babies and people in Gaza. And I think that really shows you the power of a clear demand.
I was gobsmacked when that Tennessee senator was Fetterman, or no, what Fetterson. He's just running down the halls telling how he was going to say goodbye to Palestine and Israel forever. Yeah,
Yeah.
I was like, what? This is the United States, not Israel state. How that's. It's got to be treason. I mean, to wave the Israel flag. What if he was waving a Cuban flag or a Russian flag? Would he still get to be a senator?
Yep. And I think Miguel's got it here. Representative Chuck Fletcher. Isn't he Republican too, right?
Thank you, Miguel.
And of course, this thing crosses party lines. So you ask, like, why does this cross party lines so easily? Well, because both parties are the same. They work for the billionaires and the playthings of the billionaires, which are, the military industrial complex corporations, the big banks, big pharma, that whole set of you'd have to call them evil actors. And it always comes back to this core problem, right? We have this small group of billionaires, 100 millionaires, I call them the top 0.1% at the top, who have enormous wealth and power, and they're using that wealth and power to corrupt the political system, and they own Congress. Simple as that. So I can take this. Like, this would be a good point to pivot into the MCDS. So, and one thing, I mean, I think that's good about it, to pat myself on the back, is it is pretty short here. That's the whole MCDS. So money, corruption, demand, solutions, and talking about understanding how things really work. Right? You got the money. And it's amazing to me that I'll see leftists and hosts that I like go deeply into problems and describe them and do hours on them and never really connect it to the money, because it always connects to the money. Every bomb dropped in Gaza, that's profit for the military, for the war profiteers, as we should call them. Why doesn't Congress represent them? They're representing their donor owners. So yeah, big money runs everything. It's why Democrats are weak. It's why Republicans are vicious. They're paid to be that way. And then you get to the C, the corruption, because that's where the money is put into action, right? That's, every member of Congress is complicit in this. And some of them will act like they're the good ones. But even when they're, what they do that's good is performative, right? We know that. Whenever they do a vote that may help the 99%, it's because their vote doesn't count, right? It's because it's in a minority where it's not going to go anywhere. So they're corrupt. They're, all of them. If they weren't corrupt, they would leave the genocidal parties, right? I mean, they would have forced the vote years ago to get us somewhere.
Well, if they weren't corrupt, they wouldn't be there in the first place. There's no room in Washington
thing, right?
for Washington. There's no room there in Washington, D.C. for an honest man.
Yep. The system selects them early on. And if they're not in that mindset, then they don't get those jobs in the first place. So then, where this really hits the road is not stopping there, and that getting to the D, right? The demands. If there's that whole thing, right? Power concedes nothing without a demand. If all we ever do is describe the problems and don't get to that next step, then, I mean, is it any wonder that a lot of people kind of hook up and listen to lefty stuff and then get discouraged and kind of drop off? Because it would, people need a path. People need some reason to believe that something could happen, something could change. And the first step to that, in my opinion, is to have clear demands. The basic, big, clearest one is get the big money out of politics. Right? It's a very clear, very straightforward demand, and it's just out of politics and government. And it's amazing to me just how often the long discussions will be had, and that doesn't come up. That doesn't come out there as a thing. One of the reasons why Cory and I hang out with Sabrina is that you'll hear her get to that point in that demand. So you have to get the big money out. And then if you have those kind of demands, then that leads you to the solutions, because you're saying, well, how are you going to do that, Eric? Right? That sounds good, right? So flowing from the demands are the solutions, right? Movement has to be about more than pointing out the problems. You need a vision of a better world and a path to reaching it. And if we go into strategy and in terms of solutions, fix big money in politics. So that gets into things like clean elections, public financing, enacting a constitutional amendment, corporations are not people, money is not speech, regulate campaign spending. We have kind of these set of things, and they're out there. I think it's up to us to really start pointing them out and demanding them to really get somewhere. I think something like the constitutional amendment could be a real rallying point for the left as a key demand. Anyways, I've been talking for too much.
Well, and that's what I was.
All of that.
That's what I was going to say, is to do that, it's got to be made a law, and they're not going to do it unless we get ranked choice voting or some sort of direct democracy, 50 states with ballot initiatives. I don't know, but a status quo, man, they're never going to give up power. It has to be yanked away.
And so, I come back to, we're going to have to get in the streets over it. I think the real challenge of the left right now is to pick that lock, to find that code that really engages people, that the way Gaza has, and gets them literally in the streets saying, we demand an end to the corruption. And I think corruption is a key word in it. I've stunned them.
No, I agree. This is solid. The 11 demands is solid. The thing that I keep coming back to, as trying to get rid of Citizens United and some of these other things, is how you're going to do it. And I believe that you guys have talked about it. Savvy's talked about it. Mutual aid is a huge part of that. And if there's one thing that we can focus on, is the corruption in D.C. It's a toilet. It makes, for those of you who are into Star Wars, it makes Mos Eisley's spaceport look like Palm Springs. It's unbelievable. And I truly believe that we need to take that element of corruption and just pound it through there with the attachment of things like the 11 demands, or in Citizens United. That's the way to go. And how we do that might be, other than getting out in the streets, if we're going to do anything in social media, I'm going to cite something I saw this morning, and I don't know, I didn't like it because of who it was coming from, but Robert F. Kennedy Jr. did a State of the Union address. It was a pre-packaged video to go after the State of the Union last night, and he
was it after or during?
It might have been during. I don't know when it went, but I saw it this morning. I'm not a fan of him at all because of his Zionist kneeling to Israel, which they all do. So it's just not him. But he laid it out. What's wrong with this country in detail in under 10 minutes. And that should be the thing that unites us, is delivering that message, the corruption. And here's the 11 demands that, that we should all be asking ourselves, and we should reach across to our neighbors, not across the aisle. People say reach across the aisle. That implies red team, blue team bullshit. I can't take that anymore, because as you said at the top of the show, they're all working for the same donor class, Eric, and they are the enemy of the people when they should be the representative mass of the body of the people. They're not. They're not we the people. They're we the corporation. And I would hope that what comes out of the bad things like the economy, no jobs, World War III, Trump bad, Biden worse, or Biden bad, Trump worse. It's all got to be gone. We have to blow those guys off, and we have to unite with our neighbors. That's just all, what Republican, Democrat makes no difference. It's our neighbors. We all agree on so many different things. It's stunning. But they have been socially conditioned through major media corporations. I'll talk about MSNBS and CNN, and all the things that Bill Clinton did when he wrecked this country with the Telecommunications Act. We've got to do it. We've got to do it ourselves, whether it's through social media or in our neighborhoods. And I really do think we need to build coalitions locally and then bond them together. But that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, definitely. Did you want to chime in, Cory, or are you good?
No, I was just going to say, yeah, it's all about class solidarity, going back and talking about, the basically anything but the economy, and pointing out who their real masters are. They want us arguing about that. It's, yeah, you're right, because it's like, going back to corruption, like you said, like, basically 99% of the people in this country will agree that Congress is corrupt, that politicians are corrupt, and then that gets divided, and the uniparty makes sure of that to turn it into partisan politics.
Every time.
Yeah, one of the things that I show this that I put out there in terms of key ideas is I feel like this is the one to always remember. It's the top 0.1% versus the rest of us. And, it's not even the top 1%. There's actually a real difference between the 1% and the 0.1%, because that 0.1%, I think it comes out at about 100 mil. If you got 100 mil in net worth, you're living a different life, right? Than all of us. You're on a different planet. And these are the people that are the ones that really need our focus. They are, I don't know if I like the words like enemy, but they are our enemy. I mean, it's they've declared the class war on us. Their whole business model, their whole strategy is extractive, and they can't they can't exist to that level without being rapaciously and just incredibly extractive from all of us and our work. And the fact is, like, even if you put aside the moral aspects of that, like, we can't afford them.
Well, that's one of my favorite factoids that I love to throw around is if the rate of the minimum wage rose at the same rate of CEO compensation since the 1970s, right now the minimum wage would be like $58 an hour.
So then what do we do with that? Well, we demand a real living wage. I like in the 11 demands, I put it as a minimum standard of living for everyone. And that means, a wage like that keeps up with productivity is essentially, I think, the one you're talking about. And I want to show here too. Why is that showing me weird stuff? All right, here we go. I like this chart. See if I can make it a little larger. Does that? Whoops, wrong button. And anyways, it's big enough. So this shows. That's what she said, right? This shows There we go. Now we're getting somewhere. So this I saw, I think, posted. Oh, actually, Sabrina tagged this on Twitter a while back. So this was from a website, this a guy who tracks economies and whatnot. And so this is going from 2000 to 2023, basically present day. And of course, down here at the bottom is all of us and what our average wealth has done. And this red line is that top 0.1%. And look at what's happened. And even and you look at through the COVID era and the lockdowns, their wealth skyrocketed. Where all of us were being locked down and scrabbling and trying to get toilet paper and messing around. They got richer than ever. And I just think it's really instructive about what's going on. And so if a conversation like doesn't come back to that, if you're talking about economics and whose fault it is and what's going on, then it's like it's a missed opportunity.
Well, and the most nefarious thing about that graph that if you look at it, the green line, that's 50%. That's the whole graph is the top 50%.
There we are. Hi at the bottom. And the top 1%ers, they're hanging in, and they got a bit richer, and that kind of keeps them happy, and they're really pretty delusional. These top 0.1%ers, like they all think they're like one step away from being Elon Musk or something.
Yeah, well, professional managerial class. Those are the the puppets that 0.1% is controlling. They're the managers. The top 0.1% are the owners.
All right. I also saw out here in the in the chat, all one same. Thanks for checking in. Saying Jill spent all her time in the third-party debate, outing all the problems, which we're all aware of. Jill should concentrate, as Jasmine did, on demands and solutions. There was a point later on in the debate where I thought Jill did hit on the donors and whatnot, but I think she needs to hit on that more of it. And I've actually been reaching out to the campaign and having some conversations. And I don't know, maybe if things go well, maybe we'll see them start talking about 11 demands and MCDS. And we got Mr. Bad Cookies. Cookies, man, how did they rope Oz into this?
I love that avatar, Bad Cookies.
Was that Beetlejuice?
Mm-hmm. Howdy. Always good to hear from the Cookies, man. We get them on Colin once in a while, on Sabby's Colin. In fact, you should get in on our Colin sometimes, Oz.
I get too long-winded, as you guys can see.
You fit right in.
Yeah,
Oz.
Sabby goes 4.5 hours. I don't think you could outlast her.
I those things are great, and I've been into a couple of them, but I was in one that when Brianna Joy Gray started hers way back 2 years ago, and I was like seventh in line, and they got so long-winded in front of me that the whole show was gone, and I was the last one up, and the show was over. And so
we wouldn't do that to you.
I would
never do that to you.
I would hate to do that to somebody else, is what I'm saying, because of my pie hole running too long. But yeah, I think we've all got things we need to say and get out there, because we connect with our sisters and brothers out here in the chat and in other chats by saying out loud what they're thinking. And that's one more way of building the coalition, building, that common goal, that common cause. And I'm going to reemphasize this throughout your show tonight. Congress is our enemy. They are not working in the best interest of the American people. So just keep that in mind when you listen to these two-faced liars. And Eric, I always see you in your chat when you're doing Sabby's show. You call them as they are, and I agree with you. And keep doing that, all of you in these chats. Call it as you see it. Genuine people are what we need more of.
And when you're saying Congress is our enemy, like strong agree. So what do we need, right? What we need, we have to have a Congress. We have to have a government, right? We have to have a democracy of some fashion. Like, it's just simply the only way that you can organize millions of people and not have it be a terrible dictatorship. In my opinion, there really is no other way. And so So what we need is real democracy, right? Right now, what we have is a democracy of dollars, right? If you're a billionaire, you get 1 billion votes. And so, I would submit that is the challenge, right? How do we bring in real democracy?
Well, this country is having a real deficiency of bravery. We're working off of a 200-year-old document, 250-year-old document. We're afraid to change. We used to amend the Constitution. Thank God we did it at least 13 times. But the way that we have our democracy set up with the Electoral College, and even the fact that we have senators and representatives comes from a time when people were so far apart and they couldn't communicate and they had to vote by horse. So now we actually have the ability to have direct democracy. I can vote from my phone. Everybody could vote for their phone. They could vote every day. They could vote for every issue. I don't need Lauren Boebert to go to Washington, D.C. to not represent me. I could do that from my phone.
One of the interesting things that is out there that I've heard of is the idea of a national ballot initiatives, and it's an interesting one. We do have to be a little bit careful in terms of it is possible for ballot initiatives to go south as well. They had some before marriage equality was settled by the Supreme Court. You had ballot initiatives around the country actually going against marriage equality, and so we do have to be careful. I would say not to get too focused on one tool in the toolkit, but it is an important tool. I think there should be ballot initiatives in every state and probably on a national level. But if you don't fix that money, right, if you don't get that big money out, then it can come in and corrupt those as well.
Absolutely.
Now there's where did my demands go? Here they are. Speaking of electoral things, and if you guys want to steer the conversation anywhere, feel free. I know I'm yammering on here, but there's one of the other big ones in here is, well, I think they're all big ones. I mean, that's one of the things that I would say about the list and having 11. It is an attempt to really bring in things that people really want. Like hopefully most people's kind of pet peeve issue is in here somewhere, and they can really hit on it. But one of them is the idea of an election system we can trust, right? And so if you're going to vote, right, you need to be able to trust in the vote. So there are ways we can get there, but they are going to have to be demanded and implemented. But make all voting machines and software open source and auditable. We need transparency, and that's it's very doable, but. And it's also important. Like sometimes people will put in here want paper ballots, and I got nothing against paper ballots, but as a thing, but you really can't scale that to big cities. It becomes a real problem, and you're really talking about huge boxes of ballots and whatnot, and then it ends up in the computer anyways, right? What happens to the paper ballots? They get scanned in, and it's going to end up in a computer sooner or later, and so you really need, in my opinion, to make sure that those computers are open source, that all that software and hardware, and it's auditable and transparent.
Yeah, in Colorado, I know a lot of people don't like the mail-in ballot, but I can't say enough good things about it. I go to my mailbox, and I'm an independent. So for the primary, I got a Republican and a Democrat one. You get to pick which one. You can't send both, but you get to pick one, put in who you want. I had to do Republican because the Democrats didn't do write-in. So I did Republican, and I wrote in Aaron Bushnell. And he sent that back in. And then
Sends a message.
Yeah, well, And then when it comes election, I'll get it in the mail, and I have the choice of putting it back in. But I take it we actually do have drop-in boxes in front of the college and, all over post office and stuff. But, I don't know how that would be any less secure than going in and punching it into on a machine that may or may not have Wi-Fi access. Then, like you said, it's all going into a computer anyway. So
yeah, so I mean, it's a tough one because you're going to you basically need to kind of fix a lot of the government to really be able to trust the voting. And so it's almost one of those downstream things, but there is a way, and it is something we need to demand. Also, we want ranked choice. Of course, we want all candidates in the debates. Another interesting one I just want to throw out there quickly is national popular vote. That's actually a way that you can fix the electoral college. It's an interstate compact. If you go to 11th Amendment, you can click through that link and see what that one's about.
Definitely. I think also just circling back to demands and just kind of how we can make this work is I think about the Palestinian genocide and why Israel started losing the propaganda war, because I feel like that wasn't the case in the beginning. I feel like within mainstream media, Israel and the military-industrial complex really had, control of that. I think a lot of the, civil, disobedience and protests that we've seen surrounding that really did make an impact. You can see them starting to lose narrative control, and certainly I'm 30 years old, so I guess I'm a millennial. People, my age and younger, everybody that I know or speak to is recognizing the act of genocide that's happening and advocating for Palestinian liberty.
They're finally making woke a good thing again.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, that is definitely the power of the crowd and that idea of collective that I think we're all working towards ultimately.
I'm maybe an old man that yells at clouds a lot, but I'm going to go out on a limb and say TikTok may have saved democracy.
That's an interesting take.
Yeah, I mean, just getting it out there, the video, right? We had this period after Vietnam where they stopped showing the body bags, and people and they also started doing war differently, right? War became much more of a remote control, bomb them type of thing, and people got complacent about it. And now with what's happening in Gaza, I mean, you go on Twitter, or TikTok, and just the images are. It's just hard to express how they hit you. It becomes a different.
Yeah, when I'm saying TikTok, that's just my generic social media. But that's I've been making that comment that TikTok has undone 50 years of propaganda in about 6 months. 50 years of propaganda all out the window.
Mm-hmm. And of course the Israelis taking it this far and just it's just beyond imagination. But I kind of view the whole system as almost kind of like a Frankenstein monster, in that I really don't think anyone's really in control of it, but everything is just set up in place systemically to just have all of this happen, that it just rolls on, and the elites almost.
The proper term is Gollum.
They what?
I said I think the proper term is Gollum.
Oh yeah, that's a Gollum, and it's like I don't know if they could stop it if they wanted to. But yeah, in terms of the wars in foreign policy, and you have in number 4, end the wars, the real simple, clear demand. But you can say end support of all governments that engage in settler colonialism. Well, I think we know who that covers right off. You cut the military budget, disband NATO, end sales of military weapons, period. Replace military jobs with federal green jobs. You got to repeal the Patriot Act, Espionage Act. And so the challenge and the question is, can we take this righteous anger and revulsion at what's happening in Gaza and expand it into a bigger set of demands into an anti-corruption movement that says, you know, a ceasefire. You know, yeah, well, a ceasefire, duh. You know, that's like a compromise. You know, we need you to end the whole war machine. And how do we get people in the streets over that? I guess is one question.
Well, and did you, when you saw Kamala talking about the ceasefire, put in that pregnant pause just long enough, and then said for at least 6 weeks.
Oh, wow.
And the look on her face, it looked like she was eating a turd sandwich because she knew what she was doing. We want that ceasefire. And she goes, for at least 6 weeks. But she knew that they were going to clip that there for the evening news, and she won't get held back on actually making another ice cream. We're going to have this all taken care of by Monday moment.
Mm-hmm. You have anything, Oz?
Yeah, on your... can I go back to a couple of points that you have on the 11 demands?
Mm-hmm.
One of them here is replace military jobs with federal green jobs, and above that you have end sales of military weapons by U.S. companies. Now I'm assuming that you want to fill those jobs that will be vacated by the weapons industry with green jobs that are paid for by the federal government, i.e. taxpayers. Is that correct?
I mean, I guess I would put it in a general piece of how are we spending federal dollars.
Well, and since the petrodollar's going down the train, we have to redefine taxpayer because we've been shit printing money for a couple decades now.
Yeah, I mean, there is the whole. Oh, now we're getting a
You
weird,
okay, Oz?
getting some tech issues. Yeah,
My audio's not the best, so.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I hear you fine. Mine's not going out well. I'm going to have to mess with this audio after we're done.
Audio, aka Satan.
That is Satan for sure. I want to say hi to somebody very special out in the chat there, Shanda Masta.
Oh, Shanda's here.
Yes.
All right. Well,
Sweet. I feel seen now.
Yes.
Where is she? I'm looking for her chat to highlight it.
I think that she's back channel. She's there. She's telling me I look sharp, and I'm in a vest here. I don't know how sharp I look. She always looks good.
I think
you
you're
got
good.
a lot of
I
love
like
in
it.
there. You better say hi to everybody.
All the girls crazy about a sharp dress man.
Yeah.
Well, we'll have to get her in this conversation either sooner or later if
You
she's.
should get her on sometime. I'd like to see some more ladies represented out here in the hinterland. So anytime any of you guys, Indie Media, you guys bring more ladies on, it'd be great.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. So, what I wanted to get into is oh, there she is. All right.
Oh, and before you start again, that in support of all governments that engage in settler colonialism, you got to make sure there's a carve out for us. You can't point that directly back at us.
And
Doesn't-
support for our own government.
Was when when we divest from the military and military industrial complex, that will free up a lot of resources too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of gets us into the whole topic of money, right? Of even what is money, and it does, I must say, bug me when people talk about it in terms of taxpayer dollars, because I mean the way the system actually works is your taxes don't pay for anything. The dollars come back and they're deleted, and whenever Congress wants to spend money, they pass a bill and they spend the money. Now there are limits and whatnot. You can't do that forever. But the overall
Depends on which branch.
What?
I said depends on which branch.
Mm-hmm.
Sure, the Pentagon.
The main thing is right now, that money is being allocated by Congress, and it basically ends up in the hands of the billionaires, right? It ends up in every which way, it goes through, it ends up in their hands. That's why we have wars. That's why we have all these things happening. And so clearly there's tons of money out there, right? We see it go, whether it's Israel, to wars, Ukraine, Tax cuts are another essentially thing that um, that contributes to the wealth equality. The purpose of taxes is to cycle the money back in. So if you're hitting the bottom 50% with the majority of the taxes, right, and you cut the taxes on the top, then that generates wealth equality. Like taxes are hugely important, but I just sometimes think they're not important in the way that people think they're important. Put it that way. But as far as like what we're talking about with jobs and whatnot, one of the big things we should have is a federal jobs program where basically the federal government, guarantees some kind of job for anyone who wants one, a job at a good wage. And the money's there. Like if we stop giving all our money to the billionaires, to huge corporations.
Well, we still have that jobs program. We just use it prisoners, so we don't have to pay them as much.
Mhm.
That's why we
And
keep
so-
those prisons full.
And so and the jobs program is elsewhere in this list. And so when I'm talking about replacing military jobs, I could see it as a facet of that, for instance.
Sorry to be Debbie Downer.
Oh,
Not
no.
wrong.
Oh, good. But I don't know.
13th Amendment. Yeah.
Does that sound reasonable to you, Oz? Or
Yeah, I'm look at it from the standpoint of how can we entice these bazillionaires, these millionaires, to get away from making war to be profitable, but making something else that's profitable without all the murder, death, kill going on. That's my big question, because they're not going to give up their weapons manufacturers, because that's how they take that hot knife and carve so much money that I don't believe is there, because it's a printing press. We've been printing this money forever, but they're extricating it from our infrastructure. They're selling off our parks, our lands, our freeways, and all this stuff to these other countries to pay this bill. They're borrowing. What's the debt now? $34.7 trillion. I mean, when
Is anybody
George
even
Bush
counting
came up-
anymore?
Yeah,
It's just
yeah.
net. It's
and remember when Dick
67
Cheney,
badooglies.
yeah, Dick Cheney said it didn't matter. Well,
Right.
it didn't matter because they can just print more money up. But if it goes off the petrodollar, that's going to end. That's going to end real quick, and we're going to be thrown further into what I believe we're in a depression right now. As I said in the beginning of the show, Corey, your generation's going to get left with the bill for all this the worst. Your generation talks about not having Social Security when you get to that age. I believe it. My partner Shanda talks about that all the time. And they are basically draining the life's blood, the social safety net, out of this country and pissing it away on their imperialist wars. And they say, well, this is great because our military manufacturers are in the United States and it keeps people in jobs and everything else. Well, you know what? I'd give that all up tomorrow, and I would starve if we're going to keep doing that to murder little kids over in Gaza or Ukraine or anything else. We are not a moral nation by any metric. Not at all. We're horrible. And this has been for decades, for centuries. We have been a horrible nation. We came over here and we murdered all the Native Americans. We took all their shit, tantamount to what Israel is doing in Gaza now, and it's not going to stop. And here you have Joe Biden last night talking big about how we've got to support the what did they say? The bipartisan bill that he was talking about. There's nothing bipartisan about that. That bill has stuff in it to go to Israel and the border wall and Ukraine, plus tie up the next president, whoever it may be, to where they can't take that out of the funding. So it's all a big grift. They are the enemy, and we are an immoral nation. And I want to love my country, but right now, not so much love. So that's where I'm at.
So I think we really need to make a clear division. I come back to that key point, right? The top 0.1% versus the rest of us, right? There's a hell of a lot more of us than there are of them, but they manage to manipulate us and keep us, on that hamster wheel and whatnot through propaganda, through narrative control. And so a real challenge of what I would view as the real left is to break through that, and part of it is I would say to think bigger in that it's not about getting the billionaires to do what we want or spend their money differently. Our goal needs to be to ending billionaire as a thing, right? I mean,
I'm all for
billionaires
it.
shouldn't exist. Right?
Yeah, that's what we need the solution though, is how do you claw that money away from them, because they don't need the money. It's when you get to that kind of number, then it's just a game. They're not hungry anymore. They've got enough champagne in the fridge. So it gets to a point where it's a dick measuring contest. I got more money than Elon. I'm the number one human being on the planet. That's what they're all thinking. And Elon's just, go ahead.
Yeah, the idiot billionaire child Elon.
Yeah, Elon doesn't think anymore. He's just got a central processor that's working for him.
It's a thing to remember though when we're getting discouraged about all this is that the billionaires aren't smarter than us. The biggest thing that makes you a billionaire, right, is what you got lucky sperm.
Rich dad.
Your father was a rich white dude, right? That's the number one. What do you call it? Attribute of a billionaire. They're not smarter than us. They're just well resourced. If we can get our things together and figure out, and have clear demands that, if you get nothing else from all of this, I would say we need to have clear demands and we need to be expressing them. So you said like how do we fix this with the billionaires, right? What do we do about it? Well, one thing that could have a big effect would be to revamp taxation and funding, right? Basically, we have this whole ridiculous tax system, right? Isn't there a saying like complexity is the tool of the scoundrel or something like that?
The biggest thing is you can't understand tax law without being an attorney.
Devil's in the details.
Yeah, and my take on it is if there's a law that a layman can't understand, that's most likely a bad law.
That anytime somebody is using a 5-syllable more word, that's code word for I'm talking to the smart people.
And so, what I'm proposing in urging people is to demand an end to it. And so you could take what I'm proposing here is you take this whole tax system and basically scrap it. And you get rid of essentially all taxes except for highly progressive income tax that really hits those top earners, and I mean the real top earners, the billionaire earners especially. You hit wealth taxes. Wealth tax would be huge. I mean, I feel like Elizabeth Warren gave it a bad name because it was like her idea. But a wealth tax is a really good idea. I mean, she'll never get anywhere making it happen, but it's something we need to demand. I mean, can you imagine if we started like hitting wealth at a progressive wealth tax that really hit into 90 percentiles on when you get above $1 billion or something like that?
I could see where we did a national debt jubilee and gave the bill to the top 1%.
Ooh, that's a good one. I'm going to write that one down.
Just let them pay for all the medical.
That should be on here somewhere.
Absolutely.
I like this. I get good ideas sometimes from.
That's a good point too, because one thing I was thinking is on top of all this with the taxes, and this is starting to get into kind of wishful thinking territory. But if we could somehow get together and decommodify survival needs, so that being your food, shelter, and healthcare, if we could get to a point in that capitalists wouldn't have as much leverage over people, because we know that class is rapacious and greed, and they will squeeze every last one of us to get their profit margins higher. If people didn't have that healthcare, that shelter, and that food held over their head by this class, people have families, whatever, that's part of the reason why people haven't done something like a general strike, for example, because people, they're kind of stuck in this situation.
General strike is a hunger strike. You don't get paid to go on a general strike by anybody, so you can strike for as long as you can go without eating.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so, decommodify the basic needs is it. we need to view it as a world that we can get to, but it's going to be hard. But the first part of it is envisioning it and demanding it. And just to finish up with with what do we do about the billionaires, right? With what we're talking about with reforming the taxation, you can use the tax system as a tool to claw back that wealth, and essentially, every dollar that you're clawing back from these ultra wealthy people, becomes a dollar that you don't have to tax the people who work for a living. And if we came anywhere close to doing these things, it would have just a massive impact on just everything. Because you'd have to be eliminating tax loopholes, and then people will say, well, what about what if the billionaires leave, right? And I like to just say back, bye bye. We don't need them, and if they want to, and we can in fact expel them if they're using games like offshore tax havens and things like that to avoid the taxation. And if they don't want to live in the U.S. and deal with the U.S. economy, they can go. Good luck with that.
If you want to come back to the U.S., bring your bank book with you.
What's that?
I said, if you want to come back to the U.S., bring your bank book with you, and you'll be welcome back with all open arms. But them wanting to keep one foot in the U.S. and then put their headquarters in another country. So I worked for Gateway 2000, the computer company, which was before 2000, but I worked in Dublin because they put a headquarters in Dublin because they would get a tax break. Dublin didn't charge anybody taxes over there, so they were getting all these corporations to come just flood in there.
There's a lot of that in Ireland, actually. I've heard that before. Yeah.
And part of the fix is to not allow that, to basically have the rules that say if you want to do that, fine, but then you're not doing business, or you're getting
so you're tariffs in Ireland. Yeah, right.
Tariffs could actually be used to benefit the 99%, but you have to have a government that represents us and control us. The other thing that was banks, and we can issue currency. Because the federal government can issue currency, and we can do that to promote the public good, not private profits.
Well, and I've said the only way I'm voting for Trump if he says I'm going to build a debt wall and I'm going to make Bezos and the Rothschilds pay for it. Not only would I buy it, I'd probably vote for him.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, unfortunately, some kind of government is kind of necessary to stand up to corporations. It just, with the uniparty and it being bought, that's not happening. There's always that thread of millionaires saying, or billionaires rather, saying they'll pull out their money and jobs and all that. I really doubt that they will leave the American market. I very much doubt that. Like, it just seems like too much at stake. And so it's like, that's kind of what I would say too, is, all right, well, if you want to leave, then, if you're Coca-Cola and you're completely excluded from the American market, they're just not going to do that.
And we also have to push back against this narrative that these billionaires are great people, are great, smart, what they are. They're clever sociopaths.
Yeah,
Caitlin Johnstone has written about this. Yeah, I stole that from Caitlin Johnstone. You can definitely get a lot of good stuff like that. And our system rewards these clever sociopaths who work it and work it. Who are the most ruthless,
sophisticated lunatics.
Mm-hmm.
And we need to figure out on the left how to get to a system, and have the demands for a system that does the opposite. I mean, those people need psychological help is what they need. They should be viewed as the madmen that they are, and they're going to kill us all.
Would you say that Obama's a what did you call him? A
sociopath? I would.
Would you say he is?
I would.
Yeah. It's pretty.
Hell yeah.
Pretty apt.
Yeah, I think he is. I think he's one of the worst presidents we've had ever.
Very effective, right?
Yeah, effectively criminal in how he ran his administration. As Sabby says on her show all the time, and I agree with her 100%, he did more damage to black people than any white president has for this time in history.
Mm-hmm.
It's just awful.
After the DNC, after he won that election, I'm sure they ran out of Kleenex. They were so happy that they were going to be able to get away with under the name of a black man.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It also just like waters down, what we might just kind of refer to as the movement that we're involved in, because you have Obama and you have Bernie. What happened with Bernie, where he rolled over and wasn't our guy and endorsed the Dems. And so people that we might be trying to reach with our message, you have this thing, oh, well, we had Obama, oh, Bernie tried, and oh, that doesn't work. And so, yeah, those people are like beyond bad actors.
So we need a movement and a message that's outside of all that, right? That stands alone, and that's what I'm proposing and trying to see if there's a way that we can get to that. I feel like if every one of us that believes these things was pushing it in that way, in the idea of a clear set of demands, and was saying this is what we need to do, I think it could be really powerful. But we're going to have to get beyond simply listing the problems. Like every time, like with MCDS, right? What I'm saying, what I'm urging people, challenging people, is to start and end every conversation about these things with MCDS, right? You start, it's the money, it's the corruption. You describe a problem, right? This mind-bogglingly awful situation in Palestine. But then when you get to the end of that, then why is that happening? It's because of the money. It's because war is profitable. War and war tensions are profitable. It's why that's happening in Ukraine. And then you have to get to the demand, because if you're simply describing what's happening, you're not getting to those next steps. And then it becomes the demand. We have to demand an end to the corruption, an end to the big money. And when you get to that point, then it's pretty easy to then get to the solution point, because you've identified the core problem. I worked as an engineer. It's kind of like I kind of put like an engineer thinking into this of problem solving, and just saying, here's the problem. What's the root cause? What are the solutions? Is kind of where I'm coming from.
Yeah, even as a kid, you do those mazes, where even the complex ones, I always started from the exit and worked backwards. Like, it shouldn't be any easier, right? It should be the same either direction. Nope, every time I'd have to work backwards.
Mm-hmm.
Thinking of it as being an engineer, Eric, wouldn't you say, being an engineer, that if the system is so severely broken, how do you work within that system, i.e. play by their rules, and make any effective gains in your goal?
Well, I'm not proposing playing by their rules. I'm proposing new rules. I'm proposing throwing that out.
Flip the board.
What's that?
Flip the board. Start over.
And
that goes for elections too, our election system, because you guys said earlier, there's no way to get it off of computers, or you maybe you didn't say that. It was
no, essentially,
you didn't believe in paper ballots. I happen to believe in paper ballots at a district level, and I don't care. And I don't know, the country probably wouldn't handle it, but that's the only true secure way of doing elections, isn't it? By paper ballot,
those
and
paper
having
ballots
them counted on site.
Yeah, I mean, see, then you're getting to the real part of it, right? Because if you just let Democrats and Republicans count them, then,
no, I
wouldn't
want them
there.
to. I wouldn't want them to count them, but
see,
without
the key,
having somebody oversee it. Yeah.
Right. See, but that's the key then, right? It's just transparency. It's having it be auditable and having it be an open system. And so, whether it's on paper or not, to me is less important. I got nothing against paper ballots and doing it on paper. I mean, that's not, what I'm getting at with it. What I'm saying is, it's the fix isn't the paper or the computer. The fix is the openness and the transparency, and the having it be that way and auditable. And it's something that we need to be demanding, and we need to get in the streets as needed to get those demands met, is what I would say.
So
Voting
getting
in
in
that
the streets is getting in the streets, not participating in the election itself.
Well, it depends on if they give us someone to vote for, right? It's if all there is to vote for is Biden and Trump, then yeah, there's no point. can we get a candidate? Can we make Jill Stein, for instance, be that candidate, or another independent that is in line with our demands? In fact, let me bring up like the 11 demand strategy that plays into this, right? So the first step is construct your list of demands, which is more important than people think. It's like it's amazing to me that people can be this much into the political system and all this stuff and not have clear demands. You need a clear and concise set of demands. Embrace mutual aid direct actions as critical tools, right? As critical necessary tools. Make it your mission to educate everyone about it. But then this is the key one, right? You ask every candidate and representative, do you support these demands? Because it can be very powerful. Like when a fraud squad member comes up and said, I said ceasefire, I'm on your side. Well, your answer to that can be to put these demands in their face and say, do you support these? What are you doing to enact these? How can you be a member of a party that is actively against these? Right? It becomes pretty clear when you have these demands that they're not on our side if they're a Republican or Democrat. Right? And then if they're not on board, then it's basically time to call them corrupt, because that's what they are. And I think it's a very powerful word. I think it's a word we should be using more. And if that's the side that they're on, then it's zero support for them. No votes, no money, no praise, even when they do these BS performative things. I'm proposing going hard and getting in the streets and calling these people out. When you do get third-party candidates who do support the demands, then work on supporting them and helping them out and getting involved with them as appropriate. And any serious candidate should already be calling out our current representatives as corrupt. To me, that's like a real marker. When roadblocks are encountered, intensify the actions. More protests, general strike with demands. People talk about a general strike a lot, but strikes need demands. Boycotts, the whole thing. And lastly, just be relentless about pointing out the real source. The billionaires, the megacorps, the top 1%. So that's what I'm proposing as a strategy.
I do think it's hopeful that we have seen a lot of the public calling out of elected officials, and I do think it's effective, not only because it gets eyeballs,
Already.
but
I'm loving it. This is my Super Bowl season here, watching AOC getting chased down.
Yeah,
That was the most notable one recently. That was worth more than people think it was.
Oh, yeah.
I agree.
Yeah, it really was, and we need to do that with every damn one of them. Remember Pelosi doing the brush off to Medea Benjamin a couple weeks ago? We need to have that 24/7, but they're going to figure out a way to block that out of the public sphere. You watch. They're going to start clamping down on it. So, again, like I said, the demands are great. I used to try and circulate a piece of paper that said that the candidate was committed to Medicare for all. Do you support this? And they wouldn't sign it because they said it's more nuanced than just a pledge to support Medicare for all. And I said, well, that's bullshit, because a pledge is a pledge. If you support Medicare for all, it's just like these days calling the Gaza genocide what it is. They will not do that because they do not have permission to do that. So I'm all for every idea that you guys and others can come up with, and I'm willing to help implement that as best I can, because that's just what we're at. But I still strongly believe we have to do it with our neighbors in our local area and expand that. We have to find where we agree, and we have to make a pact with them that on the points we disagree on, let's get the ones that we have agreement on passed first. That will give us strength to move on to the next stage where we can resolve those differences with them on that level, because most people aren't educated and engaged enough to really know what's going on. You guys know it, and I know it, because they don't like politics or don't talk politics and religion or all this stuff. I run into this all the time. They just bury their head in the sand until you take away their job, their ability to have own a home, which they've done now with your generation, Cory. And food is going to be huge. When they stop feeding us, I mean really stop feeding us, then that's going to be the point of demarcation where people are going to lose their shit. Us blue-haired baldies, we're already madder than hell. We don't want to go out leaving this the mess that it is. But I'm a rare boomer, but there's a lot of us. It's just so many of that MSNBS, CN Not News crowd is part of this boomer generation, and I'm embarrassed. I am embarrassed to look at some of my fellow demographics, the way they act in these damn meetings, like that idiot that jumped up the other day and got in that protester's face about GABA. Shut up, shut up. I wanted to reach through that screen and knock him through the wall. He has no right to do that. What he does have the right to do is turn around, face the same direction, and demand shut up. But don't get in his face because he's your neighbor. You better figure out how to work it out. That's all I'm saying.
Or worse yet, scream in your wife's ear repeatedly. That poor woman.
God.
Wife.
Oh my God. Oh my
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think part of it too is I think just with like with the boomer generation, a lot of people own homes. A lot of people went to college for relatively cheap. A lot of people are approaching retirement and are able to do that. So I kind of write it off as sometimes it's just like a comfort thing too. But I also do understand that there's a lot of people in the generation that realize what's happening. So yeah, it definitely is scary, but also here we are trying to do something.
Yeah, I want to help. As a boomer, I want to help. But, Cory, I'll tell you something. If I hadn't taken my meager earnings over the years and owned my own little property, my little shitty mobile home out here, I'd be living on the street under a bridge, because I couldn't make it. There's no way.
I think homeownership is the only path to generating some level of wealth. And so when that's been taken away by BlackRock and whatever, that's a scary prospect.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I was lucky enough to buy this place 20 years ago, and I'm fixing up the basement, going to be an apartment because that's where my kids probably going to be living.
Exactly. Yeah, that's where they're going to be living, buddy. You're right, Mastermind Hour. Absolutely.
So right now I've got my mother-in-law down there. That's why I'm on the internet 24/7 is because I work right here, taking care of her, which paid me better than when I was working at Kroger, getting up at 3:00 in the GD morning to make diabetes donuts for people.
Yeah.
2019, I just pulled the cord because I was paying people to come here and do what I was doing for my mother-in-law, and they don't give a that's a patient.
Don't. And they probably rip you off too.
So yeah. Oh yeah. We did lose jewelry.
Yeah. It's terrible.
Oh, and morphine. We lost morphine too.
Sorry to hear that.
Well, they replaced it, but they didn't replace the jewelry.
And so when we're saying those things, then what is the demand?
Well, yeah, I don't think we can say we need the minimum wage to be $50 an hour for it to be fair, because that's not fair to people that aren't making money. We need to have the minimum wage be $5 an hour and the maximum wage be $25 an hour.
One of the ways that I put it in the demand,
and I'm talking CEO of Coca-Cola, $25 an hour.
Mm-hmm. I mean, one of the ways that I put it in the demands is the idea of a minimum standard of living for everyone. To just become a thing where
absolutely. And you're not talking about UBI. You're talking about a minimum standard of living, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to be careful with UBI because they'll just use it as a way to placate.
Oh, and then they'll means test the shit out of it.
And they'll control you with it, absolutely. Eric, can I ask you a favor here?
Yeah.
Desert Mantis has a comment in there. I'm a boomer, and can you throw that up really?
Yes,
real quick?
Check that.
I love that
go.
you guys
Cory's got it.
You guys engage with your audience. That's really good. We need to do that more. I'm a boomer. My thinking has evolved over the years as I realize the contradictions I've been told. Mm-hmm. Amen, brother.
Right on, Manus.
Amen, brother. You know what? it is astounding and shocking, the realizations that I have encountered as a boomer over the last 5, 6, 7 years. It's insane. And I was just wondering, Derek Manis, if you're still in there, can you just give us an example of a couple of things? Because one of mine right now, and I'm not 100% in bed with those who are worried about our borders for certain reasons. I have my own reasons for that, but borders is one of them. I used to not pay attention to that as much, but now I am.
Well, I tell you, up until like 2018, I thought that there were a bunch of Saudis that attacked us in New York because they hated freedom. I never had to think any farther than that, right?
Yeah,
they hate us because we wave a flag. No, because we parked an aircraft carrier in the middle of the Mediterranean Sea.
Yeah.
Well, that's another kind of difficult thing with the awakening, if you want to call it that, is it's just so goddamn depressing. and so it's tough because going back to the whole keeping it local, I do agree that these organizations and these movements need to start locally, and we need to be talking to people of different ages than us, races of us, different areas of life, and mingling, because I think one of the biggest problems as far as the sociopathy in our elected officials is that they're so disconnected from that horror. They're disconnected from the war, they're disconnected from people that are dealing with homelessness, from all that there. It's like they don't even see it, it's not on their radar. And so these are things that we can only understand about each other and people that are different than us by communicating and collaborating.
Yeah, and so let's shift a couple things around here. So yes, so on there's like Desert Mantis hit it here, as well. Like you can't just have a UBI. You want something more like a federal job guarantee.
Yeah.
Because then you're giving people a job. You're affecting the economy. You're doing it for the 99.
You're doing something. We don't want a UBI to stay home. We want a wage, a fair wage for a fair day's work. It's kind of an old-fashioned concept, but yeah, we want to be productive. That's our nature, to get some gratification. So the UBI is only half of what the formula should be for people. You want to be creative. You want to be, contributing to society, and there's a small percentage that doesn't, but for the most part people do.
Well, and we have the ability and the technology where nobody would have to do stuff that they really didn't want to do.
Yeah, I agree.
We can automate just about anything now.
Yeah, well, there's this idea of envisioning a better world, right? It's something that I think we need to do more of on the left. I mean, imagine a world where work is a choice, right? The way the 1%ers live.
Right, yeah, absolutely.
We can have that world. See, this is the thing that I feel like a lot of people in our sphere are really kind of almost beaten down from even allowing themselves to imagine something like that. But that is like easily within our grasp. We can all have nice things, right? Is that saying? We can all have nice things, or we can have billionaires, right? It's like
can't have both.
That's the choice, right? And so we could have this world where housing is simply provided at a baseline level. If you just built a zillion units of quality public housing, that would turn the housing market upside down, right? And one of the reasons why it doesn't happen is because real estate interests are a big corrupting influence.
Well, and we got enough housing. We just don't have enough money in the hands of the people that need the housing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. One thing that irritates me is over here in Massachusetts is like all kind of areas around here that were the Industrial Revolution, is we have these massive mill buildings that are sitting there abandoned. It would be so easy to turn those into affordable housing. You don't even have to build a whole building; it's already there. You just have to, and they already do it now. The luxury condos. That's all you see in Boston now is goddamn luxury condos. You have our mayor Michelle Wu that came out this year saying that she put a cap of like she put some cap on rent increases, but it was a percentage that was even a higher percentage than the national average of rent increase. So it was totally just this like
You can only do 12% a month.
Yeah. Oh, in Boston right now, especially because the real estate market, if you want to call that, is rebounding after COVID. Like it seems like every year people are getting their rent jacked up by like 800, 700, sometimes even 1,000, because people just know that somebody will pay for that, and they're just trying to move people along. It's a serious issue.
Well, and that's the point of BlackRock buying up all the housing that they can, paying over market, because once they get all of those houses collected under control, make sure they keep them empty, then you have a shortage of houses, so you're artificially increasing the rent. Same thing they did with diamonds. Diamonds are everywhere, but they keep them all in a tight little ball and let out one at a time, so you have to pay $600 a piece.
Artificial scarcity.
Mm-hmm. There's a lot of that.
And scarcity is a mindset that we need to get out of, is what I would say. This is the way that, this is one of the things that the corporate establishment has trained the masses in how to think. And they've trained us to think in terms of scarcity. You know, oh, there's not enough housing. Oh, there's not enough money. There's not enough diamonds. And we need to realize that the United States is just an incredibly wealthy, well-resourced, productive country. And we could literally do anything we want as a country, as a nation. You know, and it can be terrible when you get the way things run now, you know, or that could be pretty awesome. But we're going to have to demand that those resources go to the 99% and not that very top.
Yeah, there's a lot of just like very specific demands around housing that you can, you know, point to, like a demand on, you know, no rent increases, a demand on rent control, you know, a demand on affordable housing projects. You know, that there are a lot of individual little demand topics that you could build off of that, depending on, you know, whatever's going on in your community.
Well, what I would like to see is just one simple law. If you buy a house, you have to live in it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Definitely.
If you want a vacation house, you want 2 houses, good for you. You're super well off, but you better be in that house, you know, during the summer. You can't rent. I don't believe that we should even have rental properties. If you have 2 houses, you should not be renting that out to somebody else. I don't think that's a moral way to make a living. You cannot make your money off of somebody else needing a roof over their head. That's a fundamental. You need food and shelter and water and air. If you're making money off of any of those things, fuck you.
Yeah, down with the landlords. I agree.
Sorry. And that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, I mean, there are different paths into that. There's, you know, the idea of really attacking that and regulating that. And, you know, another way in that is simply to just have a ton of housing. Because if you have just a whole bunch of quality public housing units that people can get in with a low rent, some of them no rent, then that will totally change the rental market and the housing market. And it will, it's just another angle of really attacking the whole problem. But we're never going to get there as long as the real estate industry and the other, you know, top 1% interests are running the government.
Eric, your email, you implied or you said that we might be talking about picturing a perfect world. Was I wrong, or was there something to that?
Yeah, I mean, I touched on that a little bit earlier. Is I originally thought of like making that like a central concept, like utopia. What would your utopia look like? It did seem a little too upbeat, given like what's happening in the world, to make it like the central concept. But if you have any thoughts on the idea of what a perfect world would look like, or happy to hear it.
I thought about that because you brought it up as a possible topic, but
Let's go there.
Wouldn't it be a perfect world if we could get out of this myopic isolationism that the United States is the greatest country in the world, and instead of that, and take the military, as we discussed earlier in the show, and switch that over, because there's enough work around the world where people need services, construction, everything else, that if we could all get along, if this capitalist mentality, the World Economic Forum, those goons, those monsters were out of the picture, we could actually do it on a global level. Everybody would be employed. Everybody would have food. Everybody would have something to really live for. And at the same time, we'd take care of the toxicity of our planet that's killing us, causing us cancers. It would make everybody's quality of life better instead of spending trillions of dollars on these imperialist wars. And that, to me, would be a perfect world, to outlaw war. That would be it. Worldwide, outlaw war, and commend and support jobs and everything that we talk about that used to be what we considered the American dream. That would be a utopia in a sense to me. Doesn't that sound like something that's doable? Since we are the wealthiest nation in the world that focuses, that concentrates all that wealth on the 1%, knock that bullshit off. And let's make it worldwide. I think we get so many nations on our side if we, the people, sent that message around the world and got rid of these scumbags in government. I see George Galloway winning as a possible move in that direction, at least where he is. And I thought that was Bernie, but Bernie's just a backstabbing piece of shit that's in it to make himself relevant. But Galloway, I don't get that vibe off of him. What do you think? Is that a good thing to pursue?
Oh no, I mean definitely, and we just have to be like Desert Mantis. He mentioned. Anyway, I'll just say it. He put it in the chat. Also, you have Claire Daly and Mick Wallace out there fighting a good fight.
Two of my favorites. Yes.
And maybe in this next election cycle, maybe we'll get lucky and get at least some versions of those into Congress to get in there and raise hell on these things.
And Oz, I think that's an outdated statistic about America being the richest country in the world. I think we're just the home of the richest people in the world, but I don't know if that necessarily equates to the country anymore.
Those billionaires are stateless, right?
Right. They just park their boats here.
All one same. I've got to work on my sound. Yeah. Thank you, though. I will try and do that. That's
well, let's do this like next Friday or the next Friday or something like that, and promise to have better sound. So you have to come back to see when we do the next one our better sound.
For sure.
But as far as getting to that, it comes back to me. It comes back to that core issue again, right? We're not going to get there as long as we have a Congress that's and an executive, a whole government that's deeply corrupt. Right? There's really no other way to get there other than to fix these things, to fix the corruption and the money. And so, to me, it's of a piece, right? And we have to be demanding, an end to the big money and the corruption. But the good news is, if we can get over this enormous hump, but if we can get over this point and get to a Congress and an executive branch and a government that actually represent us, we could have a pretty incredible country and a pretty incredible world. I mean, it is kind of mind-boggling to imagine the difference having a U.S. government that actually believes in people. and
when I think about how the 1% is throttling us, then I have to think about how the United States is doing that to the rest of the world. That kind of just makes my heart sink to think I've been part of that my entire life.
Mm-hmm. And so, I think it's important to put things like that vision out there, and as kind of the carrot, right, of what we could get to, and save the stick for the billionaires and their servants. Oh, and I wanted to say thank you sincerely, Mastermind, for your background.
Oh, yeah.
MCDS.
It's very
Love it.
cool. Yeah.
Yeah, you
Have
know,
I-
I sent Eric a message. I didn't know what that meant, and I'd been looking at it because I've been looking at the. I apologize, Eric. I'm
Oh,
not
no
usually
worries.
that slow, but yeah, acronyms are tough, so I have a hard time with them.
They're tough, but they can be very powerful. Now,
Oh, yeah.
imagine if MCDS became as well known as BDS. Right?
Wow.
Imagine if that was a movement.
Or S&M.
I was trying
or
to think.
as well known as BDSM. I mean, then you're really getting somewhere, right?
Yeah, that's why I said BDS is appropriate for the IDF because all they're missing is the masochism.
Oh, by the way, you brought up the IDF mastermind. I sent a message to Sabby. I do once in a while. I know she's busy. But watching all this go down in Gaza by the IDF, doesn't it make it even worse that the IDF Israelis are training our law enforcement in this country? Doesn't that give you pause about what the ultimate aim is in law enforcement? Although it's been staring us in the face for the last decade. But go ahead, yeah.
I made that comment earlier that the police here are trained as prison guards, not as peace officers.
Yeah, and
At least, at least in Massachusetts, in police academies, they teach Krav Maga, which is a mixed martial art system
IDF
developed by the IDF. Yeah. IDF basically just took the best of a few different types of martial arts and made it their own thing. Going back though to build on, the perfect world is, just that creates just a baseline of just treating everybody with a baseline of human decency and just kind of recognizing everybody's humanity, that they all kind of deserve that baseline. And, to a point that came earlier is I do agree that people will continue to work and build and innovate and create. And also, it would free up people to pursue, things that might not be big money makers, like, art, music, anything within there. And, that's so important too, because you can't have a free society without, a vibrant, art scene. I really do believe that, anytime you look at any kind of fascist government throughout history, that was one of the first things that was cut down is that kind of culture.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and speaking of police, I'm trying to find in dystopia, I'm trying to find the video.
Well, on my tax returns this year, I put conscientious observer, so I'm going to need Wesley Snipes' lawyer here, I think.
There we go. So here's
I made us laugh.
If you want a bit of dystopia, we have
God,
dystopia now.
Kathy Hulsh's Marines, huh?
Yeah.
And it's really something to just see it. Like, here, get on the subway. There's our boys.
So,
Papers, show us your papers, please.
Yeah,
I feel like it's. Sorry, go ahead.
No, after you.
I really feel like it's desensitization. When people talk about the potential of martial law, it really puts out. My last kind of comment was here in Massachusetts. They didn't get the go ahead for this, but there's a city in the suburb of Boston called Brockton, and the Brockton High School requested the Massachusetts National Guard to come and help with security due to fights with the students. That didn't happen, but that just kind of goes to show you what's happening.
Yeah, it looks like social conditioning again to me. They're conditioning us to be good slaves. Sit, yield, roll over, show us your papers, all this crap, and they give these authoritarians the power to do that. I mean, look at these people. They're just like, oh my God. And Adams was having kittens when she did this the other day. So, yeah, I understand. Look at this. Let me see.
That'll be the next fashion statement is those clear plastic purses. So they just hold it up and, nothing in that one. Keep walking.
Yeah. Anytime you see a clear plastic bag, they work in a prison or a jail.
Yeah. Take your shoes off. Take your shoes off.
And it's all, what would be considered security theater. This doesn't make people safer. All it does is take your liberty.
Slows you down.
Exactly so. I would not last in this environment right here. I would have to get the hell out or they'd throw me in jail because there's no fucking way. No way. I'd do it about one time and I'd be selling my house. So
And it's important to remember, like, this isn't a left right thing. You know,
no, it's not.
Democrats and Republicans agree on this.
Yeah,
You know,
they do.
this is. I feel like there was kind of
It's the only time they're bipartisan.
yeah. Well, isn't that old Carlin thing, right? Anytime you got
Yeah.
something bipartisan coming down the line, you get an extra. And I feel like I feel like Kathy Hochul and like Eric Adams have been like competing to see who can be like the bigger crime stopper, because Eric Adams was doing this too, putting increasing transit cops, and it was all for show. This wasn't like every subway station, and it wasn't even, I don't think, a significant percentage. I think it was just to show them
they have
doing
their
something.
Yeah, they have their stage stations where they have everything looking square, and then you go to the next one, there's nothing there. They did the same thing at the wall. They showed that. Did you see the video of the guy where he goes up and they show the wall and all the guards and everything? And then he drives about a half a mile down the fence. And then there's like just one of those drawbridge fence or gates. And he goes down another half mile, and you can just drive right in. It's wide open. There's nobody even there. It's just show.
Mm-hmm.
Also on the topic of also on the topic of law and order, my background academically is in criminology, so it's a point of interest for me. But for any kind of law and order situation, I think that we need to invest more in a restorative justice rather than a punitive justice model. There always will be some need for law enforcement. I wish that we pursued white collar criminals as much as we did, just harassing people. But obviously we need to see a whole reimagining of the system. And one thing that I really, really strongly believe in is I wish that communities banded together to resolve conflicts more within the community. I've talked to people that have lived in other parts of the world. They said that it's kind of more like this within a town. If you have, some level of conflict, it's been tried to handle within that community as much as possible. And so if we can kind of, self-police and keep each other honest and continue to work as a collective, I just think that any kind of criminal justice situation in the U.S. would be a lot better.
I agree. Absolutely. And that's the best kind of mutual aid right there. Solving problems within your community.
Yeah, and I mean, and just making the connection to 11 demands. There's, a whole concept of racial and criminal justice reform, and there's one, there's a big one in that. If you want to bring crime down and address crime, you got to get to the root cause. What's the root cause? It's poverty. Right? I mean, rich people don't do petty crime; they do big crime.
Well, and we definitely need to do an amendment to the 13th Amendment so we don't make it profitable to keep prisons full so you can have cheap labor, since that's the only legal slavery in the United States anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Warren, I've been fighting with my sound ever since I got on this show. I'm sorry. I'm going to have to rewire it tonight. It's not working. So, sorry.
Anything else you want to say, Cory, on criminal justice reform?
I guess just it's theirs, and the drug war. I'm a big, the best thing that we can do is harm reduction. Furthermore, I am a substance user. I like psychedelics and weed, so definitely.
Shrooms?
We can talk off air. But yeah, so just in terms of that, if you take that out of the equation, then that basically eliminates almost half of the law enforcement that's happening in this country. That would allow us to reimagine that system. Furthermore, this whole kind of invented war on drugs, which is awful because it ruins lives, not only in this country but across the global South, South America, Central America. The cartels would fall. There's this little imaginary game that they're playing with organized crime because we create the market. If you legalize substances, focus on harm reduction, focus on safe use, those criminal entities are going to fall apart. As simple as that. But they'd rather play DEA games over and over again.
Well, is it Oregon that's pulling back? Was it Oregon that had just
Yeah.
about everything was legal and they're pulling back? And I get that. But for me, I guess my whole take on what you can put in your body is the farther you get away from process, the better you are. So I smoke what comes, I plant in the ground, seed comes out, and I get that. I don't need the wax or the dabs. If I'm going to drink a beer, that's okay, but the more processed you get from weed and beer, then you get to fentanyl. You got to cut that back, somewhere in the middle. Some of it's just medical, medicine, not necessarily recreational. I don't think necessarily everything should be recreational for everybody.
And insofar as opioids, since you brought up fentanyl, is that was also what you might call the opioid crisis. At least that's what the media calls it. That was also invented by capitalism. That was invented by big pharma, because every single time they came up with a new opioid, their pitch to the doctors was, "This is safe. This is non addictive. Prescribe, 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 prescribe." And that's what happened.
Well, and that's what every time I'll make the statement that Nancy Reagan killed Prince, and then I have to step that back a few times to talk about how that just say no ended up giving us fentanyl because it's a lot easier. And oh, by the way, fentanyl doesn't come from China. Fentanyl comes from the United States. One of the precursors comes to the United States so they can make it here. So this whole, it's coming across the border. Well, if it's crossing the border, it's going to Mexico.
Yeah.
One of the really interesting people out there, if you ever get a chance to hear him or read him, is Dr. Carl Hart. And his big thing and this is his specialty, is substance abuse and addiction and those types of issues. And one of the things that he really hits on is that it's a mistake to focus on the substance. It's in anyone who's in that life circumstances where they're addicted to the point of being non-functional for a given substance. If that substance wasn't there, what would they do? They would find another similar substance. It would be something else. And there are powerful things that can be regulated to some extent, but we everybody knows that prohibition just doesn't work. It's just not a thing. So I'd say legalize it all. Treat some of it like with appropriate regulations, and of course adults only and things like that, and give people decent lives. And this whole problem really, it just, I wouldn't say it doesn't exist, but it's almost like it's not the problem that people think it is. Put it that way. It's a whole different kind of problem.
I agree with that, and also I do wonder if there is some benefit to them to make illegal consciousness expanding substances, because I feel like that was a big part of like my awakening, just in terms of the world and in general, growing up, just all the dare and this, that, and kind of believing that, and believing the whole thing that if you take it you'll go insane or whatever. And so the first time that I went on a trip, my first thought was, oh, okay, it's all a lie.
Well, Cory, when you get as old as me, you get that big pointy tin hat, then you'll start looking into how fluoride attacks your pineal gland.
Yeah. But yeah, it's one of those things that just kind of illuminates like everything that you've been told you should question.
All right. Well, is there, as we're probably coming towards the end of this, are there any topics or any place anyone wanted this to go that we haven't?
No, this is fun. I had a great time.
Well, thanks, guys.
Then what I would say then, in terms of closing, is I would bring it back to this concept. Find it on my system here to show it off of the 11 Demands Collective. And I would say, to anyone out there, if this sounds good, then, consider this as some ways that you can possibly approach things or think about approaching things. Um, one thing is, you have that inevitable conclusion that money and corruption are the root causes. And so, you know, you, I would challenge people then to educate the people around them, on this deep corruption, and it's both parties. It crosses those partisan and ideological lines, and it always comes back to this core problem of big money in politics and in government. We need a real democracy of one person, one vote, not $1, one vote. And so there are things we can do. There's the online world. If we're in chats, if we interact with people or call in, or any way we're doing that, we can put this message out there and challenge the people that are speaking, if they're not bringing it back to that core problem, the money and the solutions and the demands. You can say to someone who's talking about a problem, you can simply say, okay, what is your demand? What are your demands? And that starts, that puts the conversation in this kind of direction. And in the real world, there's, like Oz was saying, talking to your neighbors, talking to people, IRL, right, in real life, and organizing with them in actions and protests, and always calling out the real source, or those top 1% and the big money and the corruption, right? Always the corruption. And every discussion of any major issue should finish with MCDS: money, corruption, demands, and solutions. And I would propose that any discussion of these big problems that doesn't finish there is a missed opportunity. And is there a way that we can reach this critical mass of people thinking this way and demanding this and growing this into something big?
Yeah, and the last thing I'll say on that is that, we invite collaboration. We consider it to be a living document. We always love to talk to people and hear new perspectives and ideas. And yeah, I mean, we got to stick into this together. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I would love to see slavery be illegal. It's 2024. I think it's pretty close to time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What do you think, Oz, in closing?
I think I had a great time. I appreciate you putting up with me, tolerating me tonight.
Yeah, you're tolerable.
I'm tolerable. Yeah, I got some pretty strong
acquired
opinions,
taste.
So,
You're
yeah,
definitely top 10 boomers for me.
Yeah, well, thanks. I appreciate that. I try
You
not
got
to.
it.
I try not to latch on to my boomer friends too much, because a lot of them can't stand me or they run away from me. So I guess that's a badge of honor. So
I think we've all lost friends at some point talking.
Did you get left behind at Woodstock?
yeah, no, I didn't. That wouldn't be where I'd be left behind. That's for sure. For sure.
Let's see. Yeah, we had the question about the website that Cory answered, 11demands.org. It's pretty easy to find. I'm just looking here through the chat, see if anybody's got anything base to say. Thanks, Desert Mantis.
Oh, all these guys are great. I'm sure there's something in there.
Our crew,
Yeah, thank you all very
regulars.
much.
Oh, and then we had this one here. So Kiva has two cool guys. So I'm gonna take that as a demand to see the star of the show, Kiva, the cat. Yeah, let me.
Looks like our cat.
There. Wait, that's too big. We all disappeared.
I love the black cat.
It's the action shot.
I actually literally bought
There we
her
go.
with an best eighth I ever spent.
Nice.
Yeah.
You tuxedo?
Tuxie, yeah.
Oh,
Look
I
at
wish
that.
it. Of course, I got
White chin. Wow. Nice.
I got a tuxedo named Alfred Pennyworth.
Love it.
Wow. Beautiful. Beautiful.
Kiva.
Ours is all black, jet black, and
Oh, wow.
she's got the squarest chin I've ever seen on a cat. I got to tell you, just amazing.
It's like the reward. You know, you get your pudding for eating the meat of listening to us this whole time.
Yeah.
She's a cutie.
Yes,
She?
she is.
All
Yeah,
right.
she's a girl.
So I think we've done the darn thing here. Yeah, you know, the other way we can do these shows when Sabby's on is it can be a pretty good time slot after her show to make it almost like a post show. So we can work on that. We can think about other guests and other topics. You guys,
Yeah,
wanna-
we've done a
Oh
couple.
yeah, you're the mod. You can roll them right over here. Right?
Yeah, we've done. Yeah, well, yeah, and we had one where Sabrina rolled in after us. So we've done a couple of these before, hoping that we do some more regularly, or not like super regularly, but at least more regularly than we have done.
Well, and as it's getting closer to election time, those demands are going to become even more important.
Yeah,
Mhm. All right, then I think I'm going to close it with that.
Ooh,
what do you
we
got?
need to talk to Kit Cabello and get your 11 demands on one of those trucks that, you know, the big billboard trucks that drive back and forth that they've been using in Washington. We'll just have go up and down. We'll get a GoFundMe to get one of those going up and down in Chicago during the DNC.
yeah, definitely. We went on Hardlines Media once. Kit came on here once, so yeah, definitely big fan.
All right.
You're
Cool.
getting a demand for Shanda to join next time. Yeah, definitely. I'd love to see her on here.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, you know, anybody who's wants to have a demands based conversation, I'm up for it.
Yeah.
And what we can do about this mess. All right. Oh, here we go. Yeah, we got to show the positive comments. Thanks, Zelipa. Yeah, there's bad cookies. He's
Yeah, that's bad
demanding.
cookies demands. I
He's
like
trouble.
that. He's good trouble. Chaotic good.
And yes, Sabby's on break until Tuesday. Be her next
It
show.
is. It's actually it's Sabrina's birthday today.
Yeah.
Happy birthday to
Oh yeah,
Sabrina.
happy birthday wishes to Sabrina, of course, from everyone.
Hitting the big town in NYC. I bet
Yeah.
she's having a blast.
I'm sure
hope
she's
so.
glued to the screen watching us.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure on her birthday in New York City, she's watching us.
There's bad cookies. This came for Kiva.
Fair enough.
All right, cool. All right, then. It's been fun, and we'll see you all next time. Wave goodbye.
Thanks.